When Joel Osteen, the well-known televangelist, broke devastating news to his millions of followers, it came against a backdrop of growing controversy. Osteen, who built his ministry on the promise of your best life now, is now facing an empire in crisis. The Hurricane Harvey disaster revealed his refusal to help flood victims in time. The church shooting exposed serious security gaps. And financial records showed Lakewood spends far more on TV broadcasts than helping the poor. Other pastors even claim he no longer preaches Christianity at all. Meanwhile, sources close to the family suggest another crisis is brewing that could end his ministry forever. To understand how it all came to this, you have to look back at the beginning. Joel Scott Osteen was born on March 5, 1963, in Houston, Texas, one of 6 children in a family built on faith and big dreams. His father, John Osteen, had been a traditional Southern Baptist pastor until 1959. He left the old ways behind and started something new, what would eventually become Lakewood Church. His mother, Dodie, stood faithfully beside John through every struggle, and Joel grew up watching them lean into faith during hardship. When his sister Lisa was born in 1958 with severe disabilities, it shook the family but also shaped their ministry, pushing John and Dodie toward faith healing, which became Lakewood's heartbeat. Joel's siblings each carved their own paths of influence. Lisa became an associate pastor at Lakewood, while his brother Paul became a vascular surgeon and missionary. The roots of the church itself trace back to May 1959, when John and Dodie opened Lakewood Baptist Church inside an old feed store with just 234 seats. Soon, the Baptist label was dropped, and the church became known for miracles and healing. By the late 1970s, membership had soared past 5,000, transforming Lakewood into a movement. Despite his family's spiritual prominence, Joel wasn't drawn to preaching at first. Shy and soft-spoken, he graduated from Humble High School in 1981, then briefly attended Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma to study radio and television communications before dropping out within a year. His decision wasn't about lack of ambition. It was about focus. In 1982, at just 19, Joel returned to Houston and launched Lakewood's television ministry from scratch. With 1 local station and 1 national cable channel, he built the foundation of Lakewood's media empire. For 17 years, he worked tirelessly behind the scenes, filming, editing, and even tracking what his father wore on stage, ensuring every broadcast looked flawless. To Joel, the church's message deserved the same polish and professionalism as any major production. Joel Osteen's decision to skip college and dive into media wasn't a failure. It was preparation. Long before stepping behind the pulpit, he helped turn Lakewood Church into a household name through its television broadcasts, carefully shaping how the world saw the ministry. At home, faith was more than sermons. It was daily life. In 1981, his mother Dodie was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and while doctors gave up, the family did not. She survived, and her healing became a cornerstone of their message. Never stop believing. For Joel, prayer and positivity weren't just slogans. They were lived values. Working behind the camera, he absorbed everything, studying how his father inspired people, learning not from seminary but from hundreds of hours of editing sermons. Preaching was never his plan. Whenever his father asked, Joel would laugh it off, saying, "No, Daddy, you're the preacher. Who can preach better than you?" But in January 1999, something shifted. On the 17th, he nervously gave his first sermon, speaking quickly, cracking jokes, and sharing family stories. Just 6 days later, tragedy struck. His father died suddenly of a heart attack. Joel's first sermon turned out to be the last one his father ever heard. With Lakewood's 6,000 members left without a leader, eyes turned to Joel. He had no formal training, no theological degree, and little experience. But despite his grief, he stepped forward. On June 7, 1999, less than 6 months after his father's passing, Joel Osteen was officially installed as senior pastor. To everyone's surprise, people responded immediately. Within 5 years, attendance had more than tripled, swelling from 6,000 to nearly 30,000 each week. By 2004, Lakewood had become the largest church in America. Joel wasn't just preaching. He was building a movement. He doubled spending on TV airtime, fought for better slots in major cities, plastered Lakewood's name on billboards, and crafted sermons that were uplifting and easy to follow. His blend of hope, media, and message propelled Lakewood to new heights. The original 8,000-seat sanctuary couldn't keep up, so Joel thought bigger, much bigger. In 2003, Lakewood signed a 30-year lease on the Compaq Center, the former home of the Houston Rockets. They paid $12 million up front with an option to extend for another 30 years at $22 million, and then pour between $90 and $95 million into renovations, about $158 million in today's money. The arena was gutted and rebuilt with 5 new stories, classrooms, media studios, sprawling carpets, and even indoor waterfalls. After 15 months of construction, Lakewood purchased the building outright in 2010 for $7.5 million. But the real milestone came on July 16, 2005, when the doors opened to the brand-new sanctuary. Every one of its 16,000 seats was filled, and millions more tuned in worldwide. The same arena that once echoed with NBA championships now thundered with worship. Attendance soared past 40,000 weekly, while TV broadcasts reached an estimated 10 million viewers across more than 100 countries. What began as a modest church and a converted feed store had grown into a global powerhouse in the heart of Houston. And it wasn't just the scale or the spectacle drawing people in. It was Joel's message. Joel Osteen didn't preach about sin or judgment like many pastors before him. Instead, he focused on positivity, gratitude, and self-worth. His sermons often sounded more like motivational talks than warnings, leading some critics to dismiss his style as Christian light or shallow. But people kept showing up. They tuned in on Sundays, read his books, and came back for more. When he released Your Best Life now in October 2004, no one expected the phenomenon it would become. By December, just 3 months later, it had sold over 500,000 copies. By May 2005, it passed the 1 million mark, and it stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 200 weeks, nearly 4 years. Today, the book has sold more than 4 million copies worldwide. With that success, Joel wasn't just a preacher anymore. He was a brand. After 2005, he stopped taking a salary from Lakewood, but he didn't need to. His 15 books brought in millions. One of them, Become a Better You, earned him $13 million alone. His live speaking events packed NBA-sized arenas, with Joel making between $100,000 and $200,000 for a single appearance. His merchandise, from books and CDs to clothes and gifts, sold in bulk, and his massive social media following turned into another revenue stream. 25 million on Facebook, 10 million on Twitter, and 5 million on Instagram. Together, Joel and his wife Victoria built a fortune estimated at $100 million. In 2013, he launched his Night of Hope tour, a series of paid events in arenas across the country, with tickets selling for around $15. On March 11, 2013, he filled the American Airlines Arena in Miami, which holds more than 20,000 people. By 2019, the tour reached London's Wembley Arena, and in 2017 alone, Lakewood spent $6.7 million on these events. Unlike many televangelists, Joel didn't limit himself to Christian networks. He went mainstream. He sat down with Oprah, appeared on Good Morning America, and gave a widely discussed interview on Larry King Live in 2005. His conversations with Oprah helped reframe him as more than a pastor. He became a motivational figure for anyone, religious or not. His message was simple: be hopeful, believe in better, keep going. It connected with millions. Today, the Osteen brand brings in around $55 million a year. But behind the inspiration lies a financial reality that often raises eyebrows. Out of Lakewood's $90 million annual budget, only about $1.2 million, just 1.3%, goes to missions and outreach. Meanwhile, $31.7 million funds weekly services, $25.1 million supports the TV ministry, and $6.7 million goes to Night of Hope. The rest is consumed by staff, administration, and fundraising. For a church this big and this wealthy, the tiny slice directed to traditional charity work makes many uncomfortable. Yet at the same time, Joel's global reach and relentless positivity continue to draw millions who believe his message has changed their lives. Others point to the scale of Joel Osteen's impact. Millions hear his message every week. Millions more read his books. And thousands walk through the doors of a building that once echoed with basketball cheers, but now fills with prayer and hope. Yet Joel himself wasn't planning anything special the day he stepped into a small jewelry store in Houston to replace a watch battery. Behind the counter stood Victoria, a young psychology student working in her mother's shop, and that chance meeting in April 1985 changed everything. 2 years later, on April 4th, 1987, they were married. At the time, Joel was still quietly working behind the scenes in his father's ministry, far from the pulpit and the spotlight, while Victoria, raised in a home of both faith and science, her father a NASA engineer who helped build the Saturn rocket, and her mother a Sunday school teacher, never expected a life in ministry. What began as a simple encounter soon grew into a lifelong partnership that would help guide Lakewood Church through decades of admiration and controversy. Nearly 40 years later, their influence touches millions. Victoria's own journey is remarkable in itself. Born in Huntsville, Alabama in 1961, her family moved to Houston when she was 2, and her childhood was shaped by steady routines and strong church traditions. After marrying Joel, she began simply, assisting with offerings and background tasks. But in 2003, she launched the Lakewood Church Women's Ministry, which quickly expanded to reach thousands each year. Over time, she stepped more prominently onto stage, her words broadcast across networks, and her image streaming into homes worldwide. In 2008, she published Love Your Life, which debuted at number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list with an initial print run of 750,000 copies, cementing her role as not just Joel's partner, but a leader in her own right. Meanwhile, the Osteen children grew up in the whirlwind of Lakewood expansion. Their son, Jonathan, born April 20th, 1995, pursued film at the University of Texas at Austin, graduating in 2017. But even before then, he was leading worship and performing alongside his sister. By 2016, Jonathan and Alexandra, born November 9th, 1998, were on stage together before crowds of 45,000, including at America's Night of Hope in San Francisco. Jonathan later branched into songwriting and production for Lakewood's young adult albums and, in 2019, preached his first sermon on Father's Day, marking his transition from singer to speaker. Alexander became a lead vocalist in Lakewood's worship band, Ella, with songs like I've Got a Fire reaching hundreds of thousands on Spotify. The Osteen children were not merely riding their parents' wave. They were actively shaping the future of Lakewood's music and youth ministries, connecting with a new generation in their own voice. With a new generation, Joel Osteen's ministry continues to grow, but behind all the success lies a deeper tension. His message has drawn millions while also sparking a firestorm of criticism. Osteen's preaching style, theology, and weekly sermons are closely tied to the word of faith and prosperity gospel movements, which teach that faith can bring health, wealth, and success. His version is simple. God wants you to live in abundance, not struggle. He often says God's will is for people to pay their bills, stay out of debt, and live free of sickness. That message is powerful, but also highly controversial. Supporters love the hope and positivity, while critics argue it's not just shallow but dangerous. Traditional Christian doctrine emphasizes that suffering is part of life, that faith isn't about getting rich, and that much lies outside human control. Prosperity preaching flips that idea, suggesting that your words and beliefs can pull blessings into your life like flipping a switch. With more than 40,000 weekly attendees, millions watching online, and a personal fortune estimated at $40 to $60 million, Osteen embodies the very prosperity he preaches. Critics say this risks blaming the poor for their struggles, implying that lack of wealth or health reflects weak faith. They argue his message turns Christianity into something soft, sentimental, and self-focused, more about feeling good than true transformation. Osteen, however, often says his goal is to encourage and lift people up. In interviews, he's admitted he avoids talking about sin, hell, or repentance, preferring to focus on hope and self-improvement. His sermons and books overflow with uplifting words, self-help strategies, and positivity, but many theologians believe that comes at a cost. They argue it skips over the hardest, most essential parts of the Christian faith, turning salvation into little more than self-confidence. One scholar described it as a message that produces happier pagans, not true believers. Even fellow pastors have been sharp in their criticism. Michael Horton, a professor of theology, dubbed Osteen's approach the cotton candy gospel, sweet but not nourishing, saying he treats the Bible like a fortune cookie, picking out happy verses while ignoring passages about suffering. J.I. Packer went further, warning that skipping repentance is a red flag. Some go as far as to call his message a distortion, or even heresy. Yet despite the backlash, millions keep tuning in, buying the books, and filling the seats. And beyond theology, even Lakewood Church's approach to communion has become another flashpoint in the controversy. Baptism and communion have always been central to Christian tradition, practiced for centuries as visible signs of faith. Yet for a long time, critics claimed Lakewood Church barely emphasized either. Baptisms were said to be rare, and communion wasn't a regular part of Sunday services, which raised eyebrows in a congregation of that size. Things have shifted, however. On April 26, 2025, Joel Osteen baptized hundreds of people during a major church event. Proven practices weren't gone, but simply not always front and center. Communion is still affirmed in Lakewood's beliefs and encouraged among members, but unlike many other churches, it doesn't happen every week. For some, that absence feeds a perception that deeper traditions of faith have been traded for something simpler, something easy to market. That same concern about priorities surfaced again in July 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when Lakewood shocked many by accepting a $4.4 million loan from the Federal Paycheck Protection Program, designed to keep small businesses and nonprofits afloat during shutdowns. The program wasn't intended for megachurches with $90 million annual budgets and pastors worth between $50 and $100 million. The loan, one of the largest in Houston at the time, covered pay and benefits for around 370 staff members, while in-person services were suspended. For 7 months, public backlash was swift, with critics arguing that it blurred the line between church and state. By October 2021, Lakewood repaid the loan in full, insisting that neither Joel nor Victoria Osteen personally benefited. But the damage was already done. The episode ignited a national debate over how megachurches handle money and whether they should receive government aid. Then came another bombshell. A financial report revealed that out of Lakewood's $90 million annual budget, only $1.2 million, just 1.3%, went to missions and outreach. For many, this was shocking. Donors usually give expecting to support community programs, not to fund a sprawling media empire. Yet the same report showed Lakewood had spent $25.1 million on television broadcasts, $31.7 million on weekly services and programs, and another $6.7 million on its flashy Night of Hope events. Out of Lakewood's $90 million budget, $11 million went to administration, and another $11 million to fundraising. That kind of spending painted a clear picture. Lakewood wasn't just a church, it was a brand, and the focus seemed more on expanding that brand than helping those in need. Joel Osteen has always been quick to defend himself by noting that he doesn't take a salary from the church, a practice he stopped in 2004 or 2005. But he doesn't need to. His net worth is estimated between $50 and $100 million, built not from tithes, but from his books, speaking tours, and merchandise tied to his name. His debut book, Your Best Life Now, released in 2004, sold more than 4 million copies and spent nearly 4 years on the New York Times bestseller list. His second book alone brought in about $13 million in royalties and advances. Joel and Victoria live in a 17,000-square-foot mansion in Houston, purchased in 2010 for $10.5 million and now valued at around $16 million. They also own a second home worth about $3 million, paying nearly $250,000 in property taxes in a single year. So while Joel may not technically be on the church payroll, his platform has made him immensely wealthy. To some, it's a mark of success. To others, it's proof that something is deeply wrong. That criticism only grew sharper when legal troubles hit. In 2011, the New York-based band The American Dollar filed a $3 million federal lawsuit against Lakewood Church, alleging the church had used a 58-second clip of their song Signaling Through Flames in a DVD commercial after the license had expired earlier that year. The band said it wasn't just about money, but about being linked to a televangelist without their consent. Lakewood argued it was a misunderstanding, believing the license still applied. By February 2012, a judge sided with the church, awarding the band nothing. The case underscored just how massive and complicated Lakewood's media empire had become, so big that even a few seconds of background music could spark a multi-million-dollar fight. 6 years later, a different kind of storm hit. In August 2017, Hurricane Harvey tore through Houston, displacing thousands of families. At the center of the disaster stood Lakewood Church, once the compact center, capable of seating more than 16,000 people. Yet its doors stayed shut. The church posted on Facebook that the building was flooded and inaccessible. But soon, locals began sharing photos and videos online that told a very different story. Online, the backlash was immediate. The area around Lakewood looked dry. The streets were clear, and the hashtag #OpenLakewoodChurch exploded across Twitter. Celebrities, locals, and news outlets all demanded the same thing. Why hadn't Joel Osteen opened his massive church to help? Lakewood's team insisted they were waiting for official shelters to fill up and shared pictures of water in the lower parts of the building. But the images didn't match what people on the ground were seeing. Meanwhile, local businesses like Mattress Max Gallery Furniture opened their doors right away, a comparison that made Lakewood look even worse. After days of pressure, the church finally opened as a shelter, but the delay left a permanent stain on Osteen's image. For many, it revealed where the church's real priorities lay, and it wasn't with the people. The memory stuck. So when Hurricane Beryl hit Houston in July 2025 and knocked out power for millions, all eyes were back on Lakewood. This time, the church responded quickly, handing out 40,000 bottles of water, providing food, and opening the building as a cooling center. Still, the internet was relentless. Memes and jokes spread claiming Osteen was locking the doors again. Some even posted photos of his mansion, sarcastically asking if that was open to the public. One longtime member admitted they were surprised the church had opened at all. The incident revealed something deeper. Even when Lakewood did the right thing, the shadow of Hurricane Harvey created a trust gap that has never fully closed. And then came an even darker chapter. In 2014, a family filed a lawsuit claiming something horrific happened inside Lakewood during a service. They alleged an usher grabbed their 18-month-old daughter's car seat, with her still strapped inside, and hurled it off a pew. The child landed face-first on the floor and was badly injured. The family said the trauma forced them to leave Texas entirely. Lakewood denied the claims, insisting no witnesses could be found. Yet court records reveal the church quietly paid a $15,000 settlement. At first, the church tried to claim immunity under the Charitable Immunity Act, but that argument failed. The case raised serious questions about how Lakewood protects its members, especially the most vulnerable. Then, on February 11, 2024, tragedy struck again. During a Spanish-language service, 36-year-old Genesee Yvonne Moreno walked into Lakewood with her 7-year-old son. She wore a trench coat and carried a backpack. Hidden beneath the coat was an AR-15 rifle, and inside the bag was another gun along with what she claimed was a bomb. At exactly 1:53 p.m., she opened fire in a hallway just outside the worship center. In seconds, she fired around 30 rounds, hitting a 47-year-old man in the leg. Worshippers screamed and scattered as 2 off-duty officers working security rushed toward the gunfire and shot back, killing Moreno. But in the chaos, her own son was struck in the head. What investigators discovered afterward made the story even more disturbing. Moreno's rifle carried a Palestine sticker, and her belongings included anti-Semitic writings, conspiracy theories, and praise for terrorists. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, she has still been able to legally buy the AR-15 just 2 months earlier. Texas had no red flag law to stop her. That gap in the system changed lives forever. The shooting lasted only minutes, but it sent shockwaves across the nation. And the most painful part was the fate of her little boy.